Manager wouldn't let me leave to catch the shuttle early. First post, but here goes. This was a few years ago now. It was my first job out of college and I was an administrative assistant for some people, one of which was my direct boss. She very obviously didn't like me. There were tons of issues and false reporting, including assuming that any screw-up was my fault. I don't know why. There was never a past incident to make her think that. She never believed me when things got cancelled or when things weren't received on time. But I always had the email chains to prove it, to which she always said it wasn't my fault, this time. Anyways, I had to shuttle from my parking lot to the office building. The shuttle ran every 15 minutes but tends to get there early. Now in this role, I didn't have a formal time punch to clock in on. Instead I would put my hours in a timesheet at the end of the week. I always filled the timesheets in the same, putting 8:4:30 to total my 40 hours. But I tended to leave the physical building a few minutes before 4:30 so I could catch the 4:30 shuttle. The other co-supervisor type of person knew this and said it was fine. One day I get a call while I'm on the shuttle to handle something in the office. I apologize and say that I had already left for the day and was on the shuttle. She said, "It's 4:27, you should be working until exactly 4:30. I explained that I leave a few minutes early to catch the shuttle, otherwise I would have to wait for the next one to come at 4:45, and it was made clear I wasn't paid for when I stayed past 4:30. I also explained that I also get in before exactly 8 a.m. so I was confident it made up the difference. She didn't believe me and wanted me to start recording exact time in and to stay until exactly 4:30. At the same time also, I was not allowed to exceed my 40-hour work week. So I did. I started putting in the exact time that I got into the office in my timesheet. And as it turns out, I was getting in way sooner than the few minutes I was leaving early to catch the shuttle. Friday comes and I can't work more than my assigned 40 hours. I tell her that I need to leave early today to make sure that I was still at the hour cap. Since I was coming in a few minutes early every day and not leaving until exactly 4:30, I had to leave about a half hour early that week. She was annoyed for sure but let it go. This went on for a couple of weeks. But one week we had an event I had to come in early to help with. That early arrival plus my usual early time into the office meant that I had to leave a full 90 minutes early on Friday in order to keep my 40 hours standard. It just so happened that this Friday was when we had a new team member move into our offices. I was helping with the office setup and told her I had to go. It wasn't even 3 o'clock and I was in the middle of a task. I explained that if I stayed longer I would be over my 40 hours and would need to be paid for overtime. Now she was pissed. She said there is no reason I should leave this early. I explained that per her request I have been keeping track of when I arrive at the office and significant alternate leaving until exactly 4:30 during the week. But since I was not overtime eligible I needed to leave now. And she was left to finish moving the new person in by herself. Unfortunately, aside from this one small victory, nothing changed. I requested a meeting with HR, not reporting her yet but hoping to work it out, and my manager came with documentation arguing I was performing poorly. I pointed out flaws in her documentation, but the HR representative said that since I didn't have paperwork to prove it, she sided with my manager. For our next meeting with HR, I was prepared and brought an extensive folder of documentation to show my side of the story, per HR's request, and they told me we didn't need to look at my documentation because it wasn't important or relevant. Towards the end of the meeting I asked what I was supposed to do next. The HR member said to let it be, or just quit. The very next day I put in my notice. I used to be that person who would just work the extra 20 minutes or whatever was needed a day to get stuff done. I'd always go that extra mile for my company. Then my pay got docked for being late one day and I was being taken advantage of and expected to do all the extra things. I learned way too slowly that bosses very rarely value your hard work and you should value your own well-being and life over it. I'd love to say you let them win by quitting, but I think getting out of there was probably the best choice. Had a job that would tend to let out 10 minutes after the last bus. No malicious compliance, but I did negotiate some taxi rides in exchange for me not taking off before the end. That's called constructive dismissal, my friend. HR equals human resources. And equals AL significant other equals. HR does not exist to help employees. They exist to protect the company from the employees. Never assume HR is on your side. HR aren't there to help you. They are there to protect the company. If you had put a bullying complaint in, they would have taken it seriously. C. The mistake you made was during the second meeting with HR. You should have mentioned things like harassment and workplace bullying in relation to your manager's treatment of you. It's HR's job to protect the company, and they would have shit themselves if they thought you were going to sue the company, using the documentation that you had that they refused to look at. I don't see any malicious compliance in this story, only full compliance to the desires of a selfish manager. It's obvious the manager hates this worker and wanted her to quit, and when she hadn't, she began the process with HR to fire her. Worker did the manager and HR a favor by quitting. This belongs on our anti-work. How is this malicious compliance? Your schedule was 8 a.m. 4:30 p.m. This was documented. A flexible manager was great. But that wasn't your contract. However, your transportation schedule is not their problem. If you read most malicious compliance stories, people arrive early but don't start working until their scheduled time. You manufactured drama by repeatedly starting early. The one day you had to start early was different. You speak to your boss and say, I had to be in early today, so that will mean I leave early today or Friday. Shouldn't your time on this shuttle bus count as part of your paid hours? It's not like the next shuttle was 2 hours later. It was 15 minutes later. You really were taking the piss, to be honest. You were paid to be there till past. IDK, I don't feel like she was out of order personally for asking you to work your actual hours. You don't say anyone expected or asked you to come in early, you just decided to because you thought that would mean you could leave earlier. HR is not HR. It's Mr. or CR. Management resources or company resources. They could give two fucks about the employee. For future reference, that's called constructive dismissal and is typically illegal. Can be hard to fight though. Crap like this makes me very glad to no longer be part of the Toby sphere anymore. So far, retirement has been a gas. Weird to have a clean schedule with no one to answer to, other than the girlfriend. Every time a company begins watching the clock on its employees, the employees start watching the clock on the company. Company always lose in these situations. You should be reporting for wage theft. So you got your cake and ate it too. Always remember, HR is not on your side. Honestly, I suspect your boss uses your position as official scapegoat and HR knows it. Whoever has that job gets tired of being a bully's punching bag and quits, and they just get a new person in. HR doesn't want to rock the boat because she is harder to replace than her whipping boy, but they try to not mention quitting because replacing you is more work for them. I do hope you reviewed them on Glassdoor and such. Double malicious compliance story. Sweet. Your documentation wasn't relevant. Well, isn't that a kick in the teeth? They side against you when you don't bring any documentation, but when you do bring it, they say it's not relevant. Glad you left that job. Wouldn't it have been easier to align your working hours with the shuttle? Like making it official that you can finish at 16:25, starting 5 minutes early. Leaving before the time you clock out just seems like something that would cause issues down the line. And it did. HR is there to protect the company and not the employees. It shouldn't be that way, but that is exactly how it is and always will be. If you have similar issues in the future, do not do any work before your official start time. Get there whenever you do, but play on your phone or something until exactly your start time, then get your systems up and running, etc. They can't make you work for free. As for the shuttle afterwards, at least it's only 15 minutes. Buses where I live run once an hour per route. You probably had a case for constructive dismissal. Just a quick comment: as someone that's been involved with large corporations for a few decades, HR will almost never be on your side. No matter what they say, they are there to protect the company, not you. Sucks, I know, but it's true. Or just quit. We can resolve that here and now. What's your offer? You did this to yourself, 100%. You can't work for free, and why would you keep coming in early? I'd have fired you for being a little shit.